Asian straight shooter. China bias. Aukus to kill China? What's with Taiwan? By Ray Tenodzka, 17 October 2021. Opening quote. Tribes are made up of individuals and are no better than they. Great speeches by Native Americans by Bob Blasdale. Aukus! Bless you. Thank you. No, Australia didn't catch a cold. Australia caught a bout of asshole. What shocks me is that the devastatingly ugly trio of Australia, Britain and America already ganged up on China before, inflicting anguish on a scale unheard of, and now they're doing it all over again. Yes, Australia was involved in the Opium War, though as Britain's ungainly sidekick. How on earth can so many not even know this fact? What do people think the Boxer Rebellion was all about? Quote, more formal engagement with China began in 1900 when Australia responded to Britain's call for help in suppressing the Boxer Rebellion in Beijing and surrounding areas. Arriving late in the trouble spots, well after the loot-hungry Allies had done their job, Australian troops were reputedly the best behaved of the imperialist invaders. Essay, Australia-China Relation, date posted 9th July 2014. Author, Professor Emeritus John Y. Wong. I believe in reincarnation because I can bear witness to the phenomena in my lifetime. So can you. Picture of kangaroo holding a machine gun. While I couldn't possibly have experienced the opium nightmare wrought out by the world's most infamous drug dealer, the Sybarite Queen Vicky, nor the eventual carving up of one of the greatest civilizations on Earth, I do get a chance to see another attempt at sinocide. Check out this generation's bastard of 8 who will engender the Kill China 2.0 program and see if history will rhyme. Leading the pack of dirtbags who invade all forms of Chinese success is the petulant, megalomaniacal United States of Amnesia. The first round involved Warren Delano, Franklin Roosevelt's maternal line, making Mullah hand over fist in the opium trade, checking his conscience at the Chinese shore as he and a bunch of other scoundrels made military incursions into the Middle Kingdom. The darling Delano thought the industrious Chinese needed to chillax, so he introduced them to games like Simon Says and Blind Man's Bluff. Simon says, let us carve out white enclaves in China where you chinks will only be fit to serve us tea and wash our soiled undergarments. Blind Man's Bluff, a game where Delano and his cohorts are it, but unlike the traditional way to play, they get to blindfold all the Chinese and lead them over the poppy cliff. The best bit is, when the Chinese try to retaliate, they strong-arm them into signing unequal treaties. Later, when individual Chinese citizens tried to hustle in the US, because their home was invaded by these unscrupulous psychopaths causing addiction to vaporize healthy livelihoods, they slapped them with the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Guffaw! What's that you say? Who built the American railroads then if they shoot away all the yellow ones? Oh yeah, it was the Chinese. Silly me. Of course America, being so astute and devoid of morals, would only kick the Chinese out after they finished laying their tracks. The 7 deadly sins. Picture. Pride, lust, greed, envy, sloth, wrath, gluttony. So, in the original screenplay, we had Germany, Japan, Russia, Britain, France, America, Italy, and Austria-Hungary playing the critically acclaimed roles of drug dealer, drug smuggler, thug, invader, genocidal maniac, pompous prick, common racist, and all-round jackass. Who's going to star in the remake? Will we get any role reprisals? Since America is leading the offensive this time round, that only leaves room for 7 more sins to be committed against the Chinese. Who are the Oscar nominees for the role of World War III instigator? The role of Pride will definitely go to Britain. Why? Because the sterling pound these days is as popular as diarrhea in the midst of a hemorrhoid moment. And Meghan Markle took away their favourite ginger. Without Harry acting as speculation for the late Lady Di's indiscretion, will the royals still be relevant? Also, the current clown leading the show doesn't own a comb, Bojo. The Chinese have great hair, so maybe they think invading a country that isn't follicularly challenged will help. Picture. Prince William and Prince Harry with respective fathers. Ain't so Lady Di. Will we ever know? Now that British author Andrew Loney has confessed the extreme censorship the corgi owners undertake to ensure all their skeletons are fully buried, we probably have to use genetic tests to find Harry's daddy, the hairline marker. In the original casting of Drug Smuggler, Britain meticulously shied away from open engagement. That's right, the Brits recast some extras, local Chinese and other coloured munchkins, to be the face of drug dispensing, while they just made ridiculous laws like India's provision opium rule to propagate the illicit enterprise. Nothing much has changed, except it's Britain's bastard child America that is now the clandestine poppy agriculturist. If you ever wondered about the Southern Myanmar headlines in the 1990s and subsequent Afghan-American War in 2001, one factor was because Myanmar cracked down on opium production by 90%, rendering America the necessity to find a new backyard for the narcotic botanicals. Myanmar's production went from 2,575 tons in 1993 to 270 tons in 2007. Asterisk. Myanmar used to be the world's biggest dope supplier, forming the infamous Golden Triangle, Myanmar, Laos and Thailand of the global drug trade. This operation involved the unscrupulous Brits and everyone's favourite Taiwanese KMT, Kuomintang soldiers. Picture of Americans guarding poppy field in Afghanistan. Ah, look, the bucolic dream of childhood. American soldiers engaged in the pastoral life, surrounded by pink flowers and toiling the fields with Pablo Escobar. The role of lust is definitely designed for Australia. Yep, the country that was my hearth and home as an ankle biter to early adulthood has been wanting some sexy times with the West for eons. Australia, bless her heart, just wants to be white, damn it. Just because it is geographically located in Asia and the real Australians are nothing like the pasty apparitions you see proclaiming the bleached out coral reefs and flambe Queensland rivers as theirs, it doesn't mean that it's not white. Everything about Australia is white. We have white sandy beaches, white smarmy bitches, and white xenophobic backbenchers. Heck, we even have a name for all this. It's called the White Australia Policy. Picture of Whitehaven Beach. Whitehaven Beach in the beautiful Whitsundays. It's white. Picture of Sue Wilkins. Here's Sue can't get a regular girl, he's got to get an Asian Wilkins. Oh, by the way, the Asian she was attacking in her tirade hails from Hong Kong. To all the British and American flag-raising traitors of the Hong Kong riots, how do you like your new liberated home? Sue's white. Picture of George Christensen. White, morbidly obese and moribund. George Christensen, the corpulent backbencher advocating for the taking back of the Darwin port from the Chinese, even though they signed a 99-year lease for $500 million and the seizing of Chinese assets in Australia because of a natural virus. Besides swallowing half a cow's daily fare, he sure has beef with China. Quote, I call it as I see it. The ban on Australian beef exports to China is a bastard act by the Chinese Communist Party. He's so white, he even has an Asian wife. Greed is as French as perennial constipation, evenly spread out to all its citizens who breakfast on choco croissants and dine on snails. Hence the role of avarice would naturally belong to France. The country that can't say no to colonialism and halitosis, even after brutally sodomizing countries under its jurisdictions from as early as the 17th century, still saw fit to murder any modern-day African who dared dream of Pan-African independence. Ever wondered why there are so few unsullied African leaders? Why is it that we keep hearing about the likes of incorrigible figures, Congo's Mobutu Sese Seko and Cameroon's Amado Ahidjo, for example, but next to nothing about their loyal patriotic leaders? Because France kills them. Picture of Félix Roland Mimier. Félix Roland Mimier was a Cameroonian leader and Pan-Africanist. So what did the French do? Poison him using thallium naturally. The French sent William Betchel, a member of the French Secret Service, to wipe Mimier and his dream of African solidarity off the face of this earth. China was and still is a country that supports an independent African nationhood. Quote, the British colonial authorities also banned the UPC in British Cameroons in 1958, thereby forcing most of its leadership that escaped French Cameroon and sought sanctuary in British Cameroons to flee to Egypt, Ghana, China, and other countries that were supportive of the Cameroonian cause for its reunification and independence. End quote. Fallen heroes, African leaders whose assassinations disarrayed the continent and benefited foreign interests, by Janvier T. Chando, Janvier Tachuto. So, after destroying the blackfellas, France redirected its Mephistophelian predilection towards China by plying Australia with submarines. But unfortunately for the frogs, France ain't as white as America. Now Macron is feeling salty about the bust-up deal, dunking his fluffy macrons into the extra 25% tariff cognac sanctions of the USA, making things even harder to swallow. Quote, France is an Indo-Pacific power regardless of any contract. Since we have more than 1 million citizens living in the region and we have more than 8,000 soldiers deployed there with several joint operations organized with several partners in the region, says the French dude who gets bitch-slapped and egged. Video link. To watch an egg bounce off a biscuit, click here. Envy. Germany. Deutschland is a country that is clinically insane and can't figure out if it wants Chinese money enough to stop being an American vassal. We all know Germany will go all in if America stirs the Taiwan pot enough, reiterating the democracy miasma that is ubiquitous to all Western regime change propaganda. I used to think that Germany might say no to the US occasionally. After all, it did put up a tad of resistance to the Huawei clean network harangue, but alas, it always kowtows to America in the end. Why? Because Germany is 10 shades of psychopathic victimhood encased in a bevy of asinine philosophies. Here's how sick it actually is. Hitler thought Germans were pacifists. I'm dead serious. Adolf the one-ball wonder Hitler derived his Weltanschauung, world perspective, after his predecessors decapitated the heads of the Herero and Nama peoples of South Africa to prove scientifically that they were not human. This resulted in the genocide of up to 80% of the tribes, all in the name of Lebensraum, German fuckery, for we weren't blessed with bountiful land and resources, so we'll take it from you. Video link. If details are your thing, click here. Hitler's poor Germany mentality is not only batshit crazy, it's diabolically deranged. Quote, the German International Socialist may be rooked and plundered by his comrades in all the other countries of the world in the name of solidarity, but he responds with fraternal kindness and never thinks of trying to get his own back or even of defending himself. And why? Because he is a German. From Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. Trust me, Germany will fuck China up the arse sans compunction and then turn around and say, oh, you hurt my feelings when you called me a nasty cretin. That's why I attacked you. Oh, you said Nazi cretin? That's okay then. Digression. I know I badger America a lot, but the Teutonic trait of barbarity holds the most insidious strain in Germany. Nah, they're both on par. I mean, what's the fascination with pedophilia? Ever heard of the Kentler experiment? It took Germany 30 years. That's 3.0 bloody PTSD, emotionally tortuous, lifetime scarring years, to figure out that gay men who like to have sex with children shouldn't adopt them. If this isn't mentally unsound and ethically bankrupt, what is? How about testing already known adverse effects of exhaust fumes on primates, or what you and I call human beings, and what Trudeau calls people kind? These two experiments, along with Hitler's camp, aptly illustrates that evil is more than skin deep. It runs through the genetic strands of the Teutonic bloodline. Oh, how racist of me. Shut up. If you want political correctness, you get the West to stop the blanket ascriptions to us Asians first before you charge me with being inequitable. I'm not even going to assign the other sins. These places are all contenders for the cesspool of roles designed by the West to thwart a strong Asian power. 2 cartoons of Taiwan's leader, Tsai Ing-wen. The Asians. You all know what I'm going to say, right? Japan and India I have already written extensively on. Today I'm going to have a go at Taiwan. Why? Why not? It flummoxes me the level of sycophantic stupidity we have to have in order to not see how we are getting played by the West time and time again. Damn! What is the use of evolving the successive mutation of Cas-C5? Biggest brains rest with these Asians. If we can't spot the persistent concatenation of divide, conquer, kill of coloured porn when goal is reached tagline. The tomfoolery of Japan, India, Tibet and Taiwan in being goaded to fight the West's competitors and then being destroyed or abandoned when the mission has succeeded has been expounded in tome after tome of scholastic research. What? We can't be bothered to read anything beyond a fortune cookie message to not repeat the past? Or do we have an innate desire to perpetually be the next noun following the no dogs allowed sign? So, what is wrong with Taiwan's Tsai Ing-wen besides that unflattering bob? Her brain would be the answer. How cringy can an ass-kissing Asian get? Try Biden's dog condolences. Imagine having 67 of your compatriots die due to injecting them with a vaccine, AstraZeneca, which European countries put on hold initially because of the side effects, and you as a leader of a province of China being totally sung for, but then getting misty-eyed over the death of your whipmaster's pooch. 13 years in dog, Biden's dog was 13 years old when it passed, is something like 90 years in people-kind years. That was a damn long life. If Xi's dog died, you can bet your left peach cheek ain't no Psi constellation being extended that way. But then again, I get why. If Biden's pet passes, there's naturally an opening for neutered bitch, and Psi was born to sit on command. Taiwan is desperately trying to prove to the world that it is as white as France. If not, then at least as white as Japan. And despite America and every Western country reiterating ad nauseum that they only recognize one China, Taiwan is still pretending that it's not a common pawn that will be the place for the next US-led proxy war. Digression. I love individual Taiwanese people. After all, look at the current prototypes. Scholastic entrepreneurs of the most brilliant caliber. Alibaba's Joseph Tsai, for example. No relation to the supine leader who begs to have White Pete stomp her pudgy little body so she can claim she was touched by the gods. And the profoundly diplomatic Kai-Fu Lee, inventor of the speech recognition system Casper, precursor to Siri, just so we can now ask a puck-like object in our home not to record our voices during a murder scene. Alexa, muffle out blood-curdling scream. However, what gets my mismatched brown panty set in a knot is Taiwan as a monolith. It appears to have the IQ of a dilapidated household chair. How does logic work in Taiwan? If historians from both Taiwan and China ain't yanking my chain, the modern-day Taiwanese person is literally a mainlander who crossed a body of water and then suddenly decided that they were uniquely different, despite looking like a carbon printout of a Chinese person and speaking the same tongue. All the dialects spoken in Taiwan by the demographic commonly seen to be Taiwanese have their genesis in China. Are you screwing with me? The real indigenous Taiwanese look nothing like Tsai, even with her Paiwan ancestral roots, nor do they sound like her pitiful cries for independence from big bad China, because these crossover Chinese are destroying the natives. Tsai is an oppressor herself. Where is the democracy in that? Quote, the island's 400,000 Aboriginal people are frequently overlooked in geopolitical assessments of Taiwan, yet at nearly 2% of Taiwan's 22 million people, they compose a similar percentage of the national population, as do First Nations in Canada, 3%, and Australia, 1.8%. The number of officially recognized peoples in Taiwan stands at 10, from the First Nations of Taiwan, link provided. So these Chinese Taiwanese hypocrites, oppressing the Taiwanese indigenous people like a true white colonial whipmaster, has the audacity to claim victimhood? Sure, Tsai made an apology, ditto with our Kevin Rudd. But guess what? No reparations and no active programs in place to ensure that the current and next generation of indigenous Taiwanese get a real chance at the abundant opportunities in Taiwan. This is the same Rudd apology done to shut the critics up, all the while Aboriginal children continue to get eye diseases like trachoma, a disease which has already been eradicated in third world countries, and to be taken away from their parents at the same rate. Actually, it's worse. Australian Aboriginal children living in foster care post-Rudd's apology has doubled. Oh, and you can stop pretending to care about your Taiwanese roots. A quick search on the net pulled up this schedule of national holidays in the Chinese province. Remember the bullshit I Care campaign run by Tsai? When do they honour the real Taiwanese people? Look at what they celebrate. Lunar New Year, Dragon Boat Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival. Look, if you're going to plagiarise but want to claim originality, why not at least change the name of your holidays? Insert National Holidays of Taiwan. Taken from this article, link provided. Back to the story. Look, I can kind of see why France and Germany have schisms, because while they are both noisome and as fake as plastic ham, the languages are invariably different, ditto with the food. German food, from my personal experience, tastes worse than said plastic ham. It's like Germany's taste buds went on strike, so they asked the Nostra to take a break too. French cuisine, on the other hand, is renowned for its excellence. But Taiwan and China is just a gargantuan copy and paste job. The language, the food, and most of the customs come from the mainland. Picture of France and Germany food. Here's the weirdest part. You know the dictum, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? This is the most confounding part of the perverse Taiwan narrative. A quick Google search will tell you that the first Chinese landed there in 239 AD. After a brief Dutch colonization period in 1624 to 1668, it was formally claimed as a part of China by the Qing dynasty. Afterwards, Japan took over for 50 years, and then China took it back again after World War II, right? I've never understood the antagonism of modern-day Taiwanese people against the CPC, because they were brutally assaulted by, firstly, the Japanese, who enforced Nihongo and Japanese culture as a standard while obliterating all semblances of traditional Chinese culture, and then by Chiang Kai-shek's Kuomintang. What has this got to do with Mao's China? Literally, all Mao and Chiang have in common is deference for Sun Yat-sen. Those two hated each other and literally had opposing ideologies. What's that dictum again? That's right, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This isn't me conjuring up fairy tales. This is what Taiwanese people say themselves. Video link, Tug of War, the story of Taiwan. To watch Taiwanese people expand upon Japanese aggression and Chiang's brutality but pervert the narrative to bad CPC monster, click here. Even the Japanese themselves admit that their administration of Taiwan as an imperial power was grotesque. Prior to World War II, there was a Japanese journalist and advisor to Prince Konoe named Ozaki Hotsumi. He saw firsthand how power corrupts. Ozaki recalled, "Having witnessed the ruler-ruled power dynamic of colonial imperialism in everyday life and in very specific forms, were the only extraordinary experiences in his otherwise ordinary childhood. He was upset to see that even his usually mild-tempered father could act like any arrogant colonial master, fighting off a rickshaw driver who demanded more money. To him, communism provided Asian nations a road to liberation from Western and Japanese imperialism, as well as a way for Japan and China to cohabit and work toward the same goal." Taken from Japan 1941, Countdown to Infamy by Eri Hotta. I have no bloody idea why contemporary Taiwanese people adore the Japanese, while Chiang was revered for the longest time and only very recently had question marks put around his legacy. Yet, what did Mao actually do to the Taiwanese? Yes, I know he continued his pursuit of Chiang even after the dictator legged it to Taiwan, but the atrocities committed in Taiwan are by the Chinese who held Chiang in high esteem. Isn't the Peace Memorial holiday an anniversary for the White Terror afflicted by the predecessors of the contemporary Taiwanese we see today? Wait. So they are Chinese when they commit crimes, and without genetic variation, they morph into Taiwanese when they feel they are oppressed by a group that didn't actually do anything to them, while they oppress the demographic they assume the name of? What? Quote, "Much human craziness follows this pattern. We make a sane adaptation to an insane environment, then later, in another context, that adaptation looks like pure madness." Taken from Yesterday's Sky. Astrology and Reincarnation by Stephen Forrest.